Good evening, everybody. And sorry for the late start. Was busy talking with Grant in the green room just for a few minutes there. But listen, before we get started with the Comic Art Spotlight this evening, I got a package in the mail from Dino, and I'm going to open that up and see what it is. To start off the show, see, this is like the this is the third package I've gotten this week, so I appreciate anything that gets sent here. This doesn't feel like art, I know that, so we're going to see what this thing is. All right, it is a shirt. All right, you guys are going to love this. All right, take a look at this. It is an amateur dueling dealer Jordan versus Dino shirt, and there's a Claim 15 Dino comment right there next to Darth Vader, and it's got me in the Thor helmet. So not bad, Dino. Thank you so much. I will wear this proudly. I can tell you that I thought I had the extra shirts here for you and Jordan as well, Dino, if you're watching, and I didn't. And so Anthony shipped them out for me about 2 or 3 days ago. So you should be getting that soon. You got one too, Jordan. All right. See, Dino sharing the love with everybody. Thank you. Yeah, well, if we ever go to a show, I guarantee you that if I know Dino, Jordan, or anybody from Dueling Deals is going to be there, I will have this in my wardrobe to wear at that con. So I promise you that will be something I wear proudly. So, because I other than the Dueling Dealers shirt that I got, we haven't really done anything too special with that show yet as far as coming up with cool logos and whatnot. But good evening, Michael. Michael, you will be, let me pull your name up on there, Michael. You are on the Tuesday show, just so everybody knows. I haven't created the record for that show yet, but you're going to be on the Comic Art Live interview on Tuesday, so that should be a lot of fun. I've been waiting to talk to you on that. And yes, it is a cool tee. We need a Billigan t-shirt. That's not ever going to happen, but I can guarantee you one thing, though, that we are going to have a Billigan's Island episode. It's probably going to be the first Wednesday in June. I think it is. We've been planning some special memes. I will probably be wearing my Billigan outfit with Mike dressed as the skipper for the whole episode. He can't change into the Hulk, nothing like that. It should be pretty fun, but we'll see how that goes. And I know you won't bore everybody. And hey, and Jason's here as well. Jason, of course, is going to be on the Monday Dueling Dealers episode. Special amateur show where he's going to be battling against Mikhail. So that should be a lot of fun. I have seen the several memes that Jason has put together, and you will get a kick out of all of them, I can assure you. So yes, Dino, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So there you have it. But just so everybody remembers, though, we got the big Comic Art Live show is the weekend after next, May 22nd, 23rd. So you guys have got 7-8 days left to set up your booths. I know that I've probably got about 70 booths that have been created and are getting populated. I think we're nearing the 1,000 artwork mark. So I know we've got a long way to go. Everybody really does focus on that last week, but all I can say is the earlier you get that done, the better it will be, so that you don't have too many questions at the last minute. And again, premium members, obviously we get that 2-hour early access. Every show I have about 10 people pay for that 3-month premium member access about 5 minutes before we do the premium members start at 11 a.m. on Saturday. I would just encourage anybody who isn't premium that wants to attend the show, just do the $35 3-month thing now, so that we're not trying to cram them in at the last minute, because I still update those manually when the payments come in. And it's always, one of these days, Maureen and I'll get that fixed and worked out where it actually works automatically. But right now it's not. So I would just encourage anybody who's thinking about doing the premium membership to get in early, to please do that at least 24 hours before the show. So just keep that in mind. And so other than that, I'm trying to think what else we got. So I'm going to do my CAF update tomorrow. We're going to do those on Friday from now on. And then on Sunday, don't forget about the collector's conversation that is going to be at 9 o'clock. So now that I've got all the clerical stuff out of the way, let me bring in my guest this evening. Grant Cruz, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, Bill, doing good. I want to say before we start, I really want to thank you for starting this. I think you've gotten a lot of us through the pandemic, when they took the convention schedule away, this has been kind of a good way to get our fix on this hobby. So I think I'm among a lot of people who really appreciate how much this has added to the CAF experience.
Well, I appreciate hearing that. Trust me, it's helped keep me sane as well. Trust me, this has been a great thing for me, and I'm looking forward to shows coming back. I really am. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see everybody in person. There's so many people that I've become friends with as a result of doing these chats, and I can see that friendships have been made in the chats, over the last year as well, which is just so cool because you never see that kind of interaction going on through CAF. You can see people commenting on their friends' artwork there, and you see a lot of the regular guys who go out and make sure that they make everybody feel welcome by commenting on new art. But here in the chat, watching it live, that's really what has impressed me the most. And every time I have somebody who says, "Oh, your interviews go too long, or your shows are too long, they're no fun," and I know it's people that don't watch the show live, because I always tell them it's really about the interaction with the people who are tuned in. These are like live panels that you'd get at a show, and if you're not sitting there watching us talk and maybe asking a question or just watching the live commentary, you just don't get what these things are about. So no, I appreciate it. And I didn't know what they were going to really be about when we got started, but I see it now, and I'm really encouraged. I'm going to keep doing these once the shows come back, because I think we've gotten a lot out of it as a community. So
yeah, there was a guest you had on a couple of weeks ago that was, and I'm blanking on his name now, I'm sorry, but he was from North Carolina, and I messaged him on CAF afterwards to talk to him about some of his art, and I'm from North Carolina too, so we just started talking about where all we had lived, and you really do kind of discover new friendships on here.
Without question. And yeah, Jason, I did get a haircut a week ago. So yeah, I know nobody can tell, but it was a lot. Maureen said it was time. But no, exactly. I think that's really been the coolest thing about all this. And I've been in contact with more collectors because of the shows that we've done than ever before. And it's kind of humbling to know that there's that many people out there watching the shows and knowing that they're getting something out of it. I mean, everybody was always asking me for a collector show. So the show that we've been doing on Sundays has been very well received. And people just want to ask questions that they can't do any other place. And, our shows are kind of filling that void for people. And it's just been great. It's absolutely been great. And I get a free shirt every now and again. So that's cool too. An OA, yes, very much so. An OA fraternity. I like the way of thinking about it like that. So let's see. So how we do these things, Grant. I mean, we got a lot of art to look at, but we always like to talk about how you got your start in the hobby. I know that when you and I talked, you had said that you really started in the late '90s, but there was a period of time where it really wasn't a focus of yours until maybe a few years ago. So
right.
kind of go back to that point in the late '90s when you first picked up your first piece of art.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I think as I've watched these things, you realize how much you're kind of breaking into the hobby mirrors a lot of other collectors. I think probably most people my age, or not most people, but probably a lot of people, that first Batman Tim Burton movie, it came out when I was 9 years old. And that was when I first really got into comics. I was living in South Carolina at the time, and there was a seafood restaurant that my parents loved to go to, and a comic book store was right beside it. And pretty much every comic in the store at that time was $1. So I would ask my mom, anytime we went to the seafood place, I'd ask her for $1 and a dime, because when the tax was added, you could get a comic for $1 and a dime. So I would go in, and that's how I kind of started my comic collection, and went to my first convention. I guess I would have been 12. It was the Heroes Con in '93. And for the first few years, I was completely focused on comic books and getting them signed, and again, kind of mirroring what other collectors have said about realizing kind of how common they were. I specifically remember, and I still keep them on my bookshelf, but probably a lot of people remember there was a catalog that you could get. It was like anotheruniverse.com. And it was kind of before the internet had really taken off, but I remember getting those mail-in catalogs. And so I would go through every month and I would look up like the exclusive variants that they would have for all these comics coming out, and I would order them. And I remember it's probably around 96 or 97, but the Darkness, the Mark Silvestri series, the number 11 issue had 11 variants. And so Another Universe had, like, you could order all of the variants at once. And I got them all in the mail, and it kind of dawned on me, like, they're kind of taking advantage of us at this point, to make 11 different variants. And, that was kind of the point that I started to lose interest in just going to the convention for the comics. And, I think over the years, I don't remember a specific, collector who I came into contact with or one I looked at, but everybody at the Heroes Con was, and again, I don't want to speak too broadly, not everybody, but I noticed a lot of people carrying around sketchbooks. And I saw some of these sketchbooks and what people were getting, and I was like, that's a really cool, take home thing that's, completely unique to the collector. And so in 99, it was the convention right after I graduated high school. I took my first sketchbook to the con, and it took a couple years to fill out. We were talking before the show about Heroes Con and MegaCon. Those were the only two cons I went when I first started. And so I got that sketchbook filled up at Heroes Con and MegaCon. And by the time I was done with it, this was over a couple years, I decided I don't want to do this anymore. It's awkward going up to people and asking them for a sketch. Some people were charging. A lot of people back then were doing them for free, which was awesome. But some people wanted $20. And so after I finished that sketchbook, I'm like, I don't really want to do this anymore. So yeah, Baltimore is a great con. I just went to my first one a couple years ago, and I can't wait till that one comes back. But I decided I didn't want to do it anymore, so I decided to start trying to get published work. And I would only have enough money for maybe a page per show. You could get really decent splash pages for like $100, maybe 150, back then. And so once I was out of college, I started working in media, and the media credentials would get me into most of the shows free. And so I would go to the shows, and I'd usually buy one splash page from a book from mostly just dealers.
Right. Mostly modern stuff, right? Or is that where you're going after? Because at that price point, I'm thinking it's more modern artwork, or
I could never afford the stuff from my childhood, even though it wasn't that old at that point. I would have loved to have gotten stuff from the 90s, but I just wasn't in that arena. So yeah, I would buy just pages that appealed to me, X-Men pages, JLA pages. And then I, would just buy a page a year and didn't really get into it until around the time, like you said in the little description, it was around the time I started my CAF page, and I saw just how many people are kind of into this and how cool the galleries are. And I was like, I need a good gallery. I think I might have been on CAF for a while before I even uploaded anything because I was just blown away by what other people had and didn't really feel like, I even belonged in that. So, yeah, that was around 16 or 17. I moved to Dallas. I got a job where I could start affording to collect regularly. But again, most of my stuff is modern, and very recent. It's just a lot of fun. I'm meeting new people. You kind of inject yourself into this community and you talk about art. And yeah, I mean, CAF has been just such a enabler for kind of getting deeper and deeper into this hobby. Luckily, not deeper into debt, but
it can happen sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's the answer? Are you still in Dallas?
Yeah. I live right outside Dallas in Irving, and I sometimes wish that I was back on the East Coast. With all the great cons that they have out there. A lot of the cons that we have in Texas, with the exception of the Fan Expo, they're more of the kind of Wizard World format, more celebrity based. I really love the old school art shows where it's mostly artists. So Heroes Con, which I grew up with. Like I said, I went to Baltimore Con a couple of years ago, and that's that like old school con style, which is focused on the creators that I love. WonderCon I went to for the first time a couple years ago, and so as much as I can, once they come back, I kind of have the ones that I want to get back to pretty quickly.
Cool. Well, I know that I always forget the name of which show Mark Walters in Texas runs. I think he has a couple of them, but I thought that they might be pretty good. But I'd have to double check which shows they are, because I know he was like, okay.
So yeah, we living in Texas, I've kind of discovered a kind of small comic art like Jill and Casey you've talked to on this show. They're both in Dallas. We've even got a dealer who's been on this show that I'm blanking on, who has a comic shop in
Mark A. From Splash Page. Yep.
Yeah. So it's a small and growing. And Anthony Snyder, back before the pandemic, he did this road show, and he would come to Dallas every year. So we're getting by, but I kind of long for the days of being in that Midwest, East Coast area where there were so many cons just within driving distance.
Right. Well, it's the Dallas or Texas is just too big at the end of the day. So, so you got to travel a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Yeah. And it's, I want to, this one you mentioned you had a gallery for a while before you started adding art to it. I just wanted to, anecdotally, I had an email from a collector who was like, I just got this email from somebody who was making a really nice offer, or even a higher offer than they would have thought on a piece of artwork. And they said, I just can't believe it seems too good to be true. I don't, this person doesn't have a CAF gallery. And we hear of that a lot of people that don't have CAF galleries. So, I'm friends with the collector who emailed me. So I checked, and this was a person. So he was emailed from somebody who's been on CAF for over 10 years, has never put a piece of art on the site, and they just use it to buy art or make connections. So it's not, the funny thing is that when I look at, we have some stats on CAF, and it's really interesting. I didn't start looking at it until about a year ago, but 50% of the people that log into CAF or log into their CAF account every month don't have a CAF gallery. And so that just, a lot of people don't like to keep their artwork out in the public eye. And, or some people are more like you, they create a CAF gallery because they think they want to be part of the community, and then they're not sure that they can do it, but they keep coming back because it's their way of interacting with people in the hobby. So I just think that's, because I understand why the red flags go up when everybody gets an email from somebody without one, but it's surprising to me that there are people out there like that, but it makes sense, right? I mean, CAF is really for some people just a marketplace to buy artwork. I mean, it's in the tagline, galleries and marketplace. So there are people who are just buyers out there.
Yeah, I think there are some galleries that just blow you away, and those are the ones that you kind of gravitate to, and you look at your own collection, and it's like mine just looks like peanuts compared to this. So why would I even upload what I have? But yeah, I mean, I say I would say for everyone, just share what you have. I mean, I've not found it to be a judgmental comic art collecting community. So, I think, whatever you have, there's something, unique about it. Everything on here is pretty much unique. So, if I could, impart any advice, and, sign up for the premium members. It took me a while to do that, but once you start buying seriously, it is a big help to be able to go back and look at what things have gone for in the past, even as you're trying to like negotiate with dealers or artists. Being able to go back and see what their stuff has bared in the market in previous years and previous months, a big help. So, I'm glad. I know it took me a long time, but I'm really getting a lot out of that premium membership.
Good. No, I mean, I've always said I don't promote the features and the benefits to it that well, but it's definitely, if you're a buyer or you just appreciate the hobby, it gives you. You're not going to miss too many things on the site. Whereas, because you figure there's over typically 250 to 300 artworks added every day. So if you're not coming back to the site 3 or 4 times and checking the new site, the new artwork pages, you're going to miss it. Yeah, something that you really want to see. So, I'm sure ML's got his Frank Whiteley keyword set up, and Jason has his X-Men keyword set up. So so they never ever will miss an update. And I will say this though to everybody: if you get an email from somebody and they don't have a CAF Gallery and you're a little concerned, I don't mind you sending me an email, and I can either say maybe you should proceed cautiously or maybe not, just based on how long they've been there. But by and large, it doesn't happen too often where people are getting offers from people who literally just signed up. There are a few of those. I can tell you, typically, from what I've seen, some of the European collectors are very aggressive, and they'll come in and sign up for an account and literally try to ask, 10 people whether or not something's for sale, even if it's listed not for sale. It's maybe just they don't quite understand what CAF is about. That's really, in the last couple of years, the only real odd things that I've seen. And usually I email those collectors and just say, hey, cool it down a little, don't send out so many emails. Everybody here talks. They're going to hear that someone has contacted another collector with similar artwork, and usually that leads to them then both those collectors not wanting to deal with that person. So I do my best to give people a little bit of a primer on how to get started when those situations do arise. And that's also why we put caps on the number of emails new members can send for their first month, just because I get notified when they exceed it, and usually that's my cue to say, hey, this is the way you should behave here. And usually I lift the ban after they send me a friendly email back, and I know everything's good. I'm just like, all right, you're definitely doing the right thing here. So it happens a lot though. Well, why don't we, okay. So primarily then, have you found most of your purchasing to, other than when you're going to cons? I mean, you're usually just ordering online or from the regular dealers out there, or have you done a lot of deals collector to collector through CAF?
Yeah, I think when I first started, I haven't really done a deal yet through CAF. I've reached out to a couple collectors. I don't know that I could pony up, kind of what anybody would want for anything out of somebody's personal collection. I've talked to people about trades, and but yeah, I use the dealers a lot when I went to the cons. But recently, a lot of the connections I've made have been through like Facebook and Instagram, just kind of, seeing who was on there, seeing what art other people were sharing and being like, that's cool. I found that there's more wiggle room when you go straight to the collector, because, I just by my nature, I love to haggle. And I've always found that going to the actual artist and kind of talking about why you like it, and what kind of part it'll play in your collection. And I just feel like artists, and understandably, I mean, the dealers only have so much that they can move. But yeah, recently, other than the auctions, most of the art that I've gotten has been through touching base with the artists. And I think that just adds a whole nother, element to it. One of the things I've discovered through this kind of trial and error process, I would see art pop up on Instagram and Facebook, and I would email an artist and ask them about it, and they would be like, "Oh, that's already spoken for." And what I figured out is people are looking up the solicitations. When they release the DC and Marvel solicitations at the end of the month, and you get to see what covers are coming out, people are like seeing them and already emailing the artist. So if you're looking for, and I'm probably shooting myself in the foot, adding at least a few more who haven't figured this out yet, go get a Google alert for those DC and Marvel solicitations. And then if you see something you need to have, email the artist right away, because somebody's going to look at it and be like, I need that one. So that's kind of helped me through this process of having to do everything from home and not being able to go to cons and kind of look at the art in person, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of tips and tricks like that are out there to discover gems or get them before anybody else can. And it's there's a lot of ways to dig into this hobby and score artwork. Because it is competitive at the end of the day, especially for the new artwork. When an artist isn't repped, or even when they are repped, and something's coming out, you can contact that dealer right away, and they don't even have the art yet, but you can get your name on a list. And I saw one comment earlier from Sean. I was going to flip. Yeah, I do apologize for that, Sean, as far as like trying to get the pop-ups on the to sign up for the newsletters. There isn't really a good way to do that, unfortunately. It'll hit you once a day when you're not logged in. If you're logged in to CAF, you never get that. And that's the way I wrote the code, was that if you're a member of CAF, I'm not going to remind you to sign up for the newsletter. So I just figured that pop-up is for people who have never been to CAF. In most cases, they're one-timers, because every day on CAF, we probably get 4,000 individuals that are coming to the site who've never been there before, because they came in there from a keyword search on their favorite character or title, or an artist maybe they're doing some research on. So it's surprising. So I felt like if I'm going to use a pop-up, I'm going to use it on those people. So if you come to CAF logged in, you'll never see a pop-up. I can guarantee you that.
Nice.
Yeah. So why don't they? And I see Nick's trying to get some likes out there, everybody. You know that if you click the like button, it always helps us out. Comment after the show, all those good things. Subscribe to the channel if you're here on YouTube. But let's look at some artwork, right? So that's why we're all here. So let's pull up this first one.
Yeah, so this is my Alex Ross. It's from the $6 Million Man, season 6, issue 6, which was the final issue of the series. And just a little background on this piece and this artist more so. So when I was going to Heroes Con every year, it was probably, I think, 96 when Kingdom Come came out. Kingdom Come was my, favorite book. I sat down and read it a few weeks ago, and it's still my favorite comic. And the 96 was back before I started getting into art, and I went to the con. Alex Ross was coming that year, and everybody was bringing their Marvels and Kingdom Come books, because Those were the two main titles he was working on, and there was going to be a panel with him. And I showed up like 30 minutes early because, you know, your feet start hurting while you're walking around the con, and you just I just needed to get off my feet. So I went and waited for this Alex Ross panel, and there were two other guys in there, and Alex Ross walks in and sits down. You know, the hall's completely empty except for the four of us. And the two guys were like, "Hey, you know, do you feel like signing some books?" And so we went up and, you know, had a handful of books for him to sign. Alex Ross, for anyone who's seen pictures or video of him now, looks completely different than he did back then. He had long hair and a beard and looked very punk rock back then. But, you know, got him to sign my books. And the next time, it was almost like we had a personal signing. The next time I saw him was at MegaCon, right after Earth X had come out, which I guess he was promoting. And it was a line around the exhibit hall. And I probably waited an hour and a half to get up to the front of that line to get him to sign the books a couple years later. But once I got into comic art collecting, Alex Ross was, you know, my kind of Grail artist. I don't know that I have all that many Grail pieces, but as far as my bucket list, I was like, if I ever get a cover from Alex Ross, I'll tap out at that point. And you know, it didn't happen until right after I moved to Dallas, when I was, you know, this would have been probably 20 years later. I moved to Dallas and I had a little bit of money, and I had the art that I had collected over the years. I never tried to display my art. For the most part, I kept it in a portfolio, and I hadn't had much experience with Comic Link, but saw that you could sell art on Comic Link. So went on there and sold a bunch of it. And
on their exchange or
on the auction.
Oh, you use them. Okay, use them for the auction. Yeah, okay, so I know that they have that exchange where you can also list your artwork for sale, and you know, at fixed prices. So I wasn't sure which one you used.
Yeah, I didn't really know how it worked. I knew about the auction. I had looked at the auction and bought something off the auction. So I just, you know, I didn't really know how much I would get for it because there was a lot of sketches, a lot of, you know, splash pages, one cover that I had bought. And so I sold that stuff, and I got in touch with Alex Ross's rep Sal on Facebook. And, you know, if you look through Sal's CAF page where he lists all the prices of them, you kind of realize there's like a bottom floor for Alex Ross art. And it's a lot of his more recent Astro City covers. And so I contacted Sal. I was like, Sal, I really want one of the, I actually contacted him a couple like years before, and I was like, I'm not really in a place to buy one of these, but I want to reach out and, you know, just find out about it. And so I got the money from Comic Link, and I said, you know, Sal, I really want one of these, but I need like 25% below the bottom. And I'm like, is there anything in the collection that you'd be willing to part with at a discount? And he sent me that one page, and I said, done. And so I really thought, you know, once I got that Alex Ross that it would stop the collecting, I'd frame that piece, and that would be the one thing I showed. And it turned out it was just an accelerator for the next 4 years of my life. And so
wait, now did you use that tactic on anyone else where you said, what's, you know, look for the bottom and take 25?
Yeah, no, I will haggle on furniture, you know, cars, clothes. I mean, nobody ever got shot in the head for asking, you know, can you do a little better on this kind of thing? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I think it also helps to, you know, if you just my bigger thing is the artist. I'm not, necessarily having to have one specific piece. And so if you go and you're like, I just want something from you, can you do me a little better on this? It never hurts to ask. And I would say probably, 65% of the time, they're usually willing to work with you. So, got that one. I was never really, Bionic Man was before my time. I was a big Fall Guy fan back in the 80s with Lee Majors.
Sure.
So if anybody asks me, I'm like, people come in and assume I was a big, $6 million Man fan, but I'm like, nah, the Fall Guy was more my time, but I know who Lee Majors is. So
I'm old enough that I had a $6 Million Man, action figure, one of the 12-inch ones, and he had like a bionic eye, so it basically had a hole right through his head, and you could just look through it.
40-year-old virgin.
Yes, exactly. So you look through it, and it puts a crosshair on whatever you're looking at. So nice. I remember, I think I played with him next to the space heater once, and I just melted his hand down to like his arm right there, and he never was the same after that. But I was a huge $6 Million Man fan growing up.
But yeah, I love Alex Ross's stuff, and now I wouldn't say that it's my last one. I'd still love to get something of his from DC or Marvel, but yeah, that definitely put me in a position where I was like, I got the guy at the top of the bucket list, and so whatever happens from this point on is just gravy. So
all right. Yeah, because that was a couple of years. Well, it was in your CAF Gallery in 2019. So yeah, you definitely didn't stop collecting at that point.
Right. Yeah, no, it got a lot worse. At least I have a very understanding wife, so that helps.
There you go. Many of us have a very understanding spouse, one way or another. You have to be able to be in this hobby. That is for sure. All right, so let's look at it another. And one thing that we're going to see throughout this, I mean, with the covers that you have, a lot of them are in color. So that's not just pen and ink. And so I was hoping you were going to, as we show some of these, you might explain why you kind of leaned in that direction. So here we go.
Yeah, Hero's another one that I really just, especially at the beginning of once I got that Alex Ross, I started gravitating more towards painted pieces. I didn't have that when I started collecting. Most of it was pen and ink. But once I had that Alex Ross, I was like, this lifelike kind of art that people do is something that I just find really fascinating. And it's also, again, going back to my wife, she seems to gravitate more towards that style also. So especially now that I want to pretty much hang up everything I have, she really likes the colored pieces more so than the black and white. And so, yeah, most of what I've gone through spells where I'm like, I'm not going to get any black and white. And now I'm kind of getting out of that because, you're really limiting yourself if you say you're not going to get anything. But this one was actually the first piece I ever got off of Heritage. I think his last name is Schofield, and I'm blanking on his name because he didn't seem to do a lot of comic work. I haven't found much from him on CAF, and so this is from a series. And Bill's gonna hate me. I'm blanking.
No. I pulled up your CAF Gallery. It's Sean Harrison Schofield, and the series is Underworld, number 4.
Yeah, Underworld. So I just loved the image of the Punisher. It seemed like a much, more realistic depiction of the Punisher. He's kind of chubby to a certain extent. And, somebody's posting some information about him that I had no idea. I haven't been able to find any kind of information on this artist. So again, the CAF community coming through. Oh, very cool. But yeah, so a funny story about Heritage. I moved to Dallas, which is where Heritage is based, and I decided. I think it was the auction that I got this one at. I got this one off the Saturday auction, but they were doing live auctions on Thursdays and Fridays at that point. I had no idea that their higher end stuff was the Friday auction. So I decided, I'm going to go to one of the Heritage auctions and be there in person. I was one of like a handful of people in the room that didn't work there. Most of these people are communicating over the phone or bidding on these pieces. And I went there on a Friday afternoon, took some time off work, and I quickly figured out that I was way out of my financial element when I started hearing what those prices were going for on those Friday pieces. And there was a woman who was also sitting in the room who I kind of caught eyes with, and she was just laughing at what a lot of these prices were going for, and we would just exchange glances. She would see my disappointed look, and we'd just shake our heads. And so I finally went over and sat down with her, and I was like, "Are you here selling art, or what are you trying to buy something?" And she said, "No, I was hired for the week as a driver. I'm here with an attorney who's representing an estate." And she said she was representing the family of a doctor who had passed away, and he had just a warehouse full of Golden Age and Silver Age art, and that they were because he had passed away and his mother was in assisted living. They were starting to liquefy some of his pieces, and they had brought a bunch of them. And by this point, it was mid-Friday. They were already in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they were getting from this estate. And she said the money was going to be used to take care of the mom. And I just that just reminded me of so much good that can come out, not just entertaining us, but for our families after we're gone. The idea of a collector who does something he loves for years, and then after he's gone, he's still able to contribute to the care of his family. I just thought that was such a touching story. And so obviously I wasn't able to buy anything that day and help out that woman. But the next day I got online, and that one didn't go beyond the point that I could afford it. So I picked it up. But yeah, love the realistic feel of the Punisher, the more chubby physique. He's not ripped. And just love that lifelike depiction.
Very cool. That's a good story too.
Yeah.
So we've got another color cover right here.
All right. So, I like to move things in and out of my collection, refresh it every once in a while. I won't say that I have anything that's untradeable, but this would be probably the closest thing I have to untradeable. This is Kari Andrews, and this was a variant cover for JLA that he did not too long ago. I have been a fan of Kari's since the early 2000s. Probably a lot of people remember he did a few Incredible Hulk covers. And one of the covers was a take on Norman Rockwell in the diner, and it had the Hulk sitting with a guy, and Norman Rockwell was a huge inspiration for me and a big reason that I loved Alex Ross's stuff. And so that Incredible Hulk cover actually came up on the first comic art auction I ever went to when I was, I think, 21. It was the actor auction at the MegaCon in, I think it was 2001. But actor is now known as Hero Initiative. But they did this big auction. Kevin Smith was there. I think George Perez might have hosted it, or Kevin Smith did. The guy you'll have to refresh me, Bill. The guy who wrote for Seinfeld, who's a big comic art collector, he was there.
Yeah, Dave Mandel.
Yeah, Mandel. And so they were buying up all the expensive pieces, and even the stuff that was kind of, down to earth. None of it seemed down to earth for a college student back then. But that Kari Hulk cover was there and went for like $700. There was a Jim Lee X-Men interior page that went. I kept that program and wrote down all the prices that things went for, and it sickens me to look back at it, because what I could have paid for some amazing pieces. But anyways, I reached out to Kari's rep once he did a series of covers for Joker. I think it's called Killer Smile, and did just these awesome Joker pieces. And I had emailed his rep about getting one, and he told me, no, one dealer has already bought up the entire lot. And so I just kept in touch with him, because I saw Kari was doing painted pieces now. And I emailed his dealer, and he's like, here's a couple of things. And I saw this JLA piece, and I was like, that's one I got to have. So, and even that one, fresh off the presses, I still had to negotiate a little bit. And his dealer or his rep worked with me, and so was able to. It's a huge piece. It's kind of my centerpiece of my wall art. It's I think around 18 by 26, and it's two pieces of art paper taped together on the back. So it unfolded, and I adore this piece. It had Batman, who kind of got me started in loving comics, and so this is one of my favorites.
Well, I don't blame you. And I used to go to the MegaCon auctions a lot too, and I actually was, while you were talking, I dug up a photo from probably like 2003 or so, but and that's Jim McLaughlin doing the auctioning at that one. But you can see, the thing that was great about those was some years there would practically be nobody in the room, and so you would have you could easily walk away with 3 or 4 pieces of art, and they did a pretty good job with that too. As far as I know that Michael mentioned earlier as well that those auctions were fun. So they did similar ones with at Hero as well, but back in the day, in the early 2000s, those were, I couldn't not go to those and at least pick up 3 or 4 pieces of art. So those were a lot of fun.
Yeah, that first one was hilarious because, it wasn't the popularity that it is today, but Mandel and Mark Alessi, who I think helped found Hero Initiative, and he started CrossGen, but Alessi and Mandel were there, and it seemed like they just went back and forth. Like there were only 2 people bidding, and it was one of them would get each piece, and it would just be like, who's going to submit first? But just watching it was hilarious.
That's funny. That is very funny. But it doesn't surprise me. And that I wasn't there for that auction though, so that would have been interesting to see. Yeah. But it is the way the hobby goes. But the shows that I always went to, it was they're really, you could see that in that one photo. There was probably, the room was only 15% full. Yeah. And it was really easy to get our. Yeah. Let's see. So, Michael mentioned that he helped with the proxy bidding. There you go. That's good, Michael. Right, because I think they usually set those things out early, right, before they did the auction, and they showed them off. You could do proxy bidding, and then they did the night of. See, it's been a while since I've been to.
If anybody ever wonders why Heritage, they have, I think a higher buyer's premium and sellers. If you look at their operation, they've moved from their downtown offices out by the airport in Dallas. But I mean, they have a huge operation there, and like they let you come. I don't want to pay for the shipping because I live down the road, and so they've marked it on my account that I can just come pick it up, and a lot of collectors that I talk to on Facebook live around Dallas and Texas and didn't know that they could get out of the shipping by just going to pick it up. So that's one nice thing about Heritage.
All right, well, let's look at some more artwork. And yes, I remember I have a few friends that do the same thing. If they'd rather pick it up than wait for the shipping, because I think we mentioned the other day with when Rich was on the show on Tuesday, he said that it took about 2 months to get his most recent purchases that were in like the late February, early March auction. So yeah, if you're local, it's a good deal.
One more quick thing about that Kari JLA piece. I had the biggest scare with the mail getting that piece of it. I've heard you talking about it on recent shows about art getting lost and things. And so Kari's up in Canada and mailed me the piece from there, and sent me the tracking number and everything. And then the post office started sending me messages like, he didn't write your address on there, and so we're going to send it back to him. And he sent me a picture, and it had my address clear as day. And so the post office is saying, oh, well, maybe it fell off. We don't know what happened, but it'll go back to him in Canada. And luckily, it ended up at the post office, and they were going to send it back that day. So I went down and I said, I know this piece is here. Go in the back and see. Here's the label. And luckily, I was able to intercept it before it went back to Canada.
Went all the way back.
Yeah, but
that's a 2 month journey.
It's crazy the way the post office has become, and we're now so dependent on it, especially for the overseas deals, because it's like some of the art getting packages from overseas, if you go FedEx, it's like $300, and it's like $40 with the post office. So yeah, that's one downside of one of many downsides of this pandemic, or collecting in the pandemic.
Well, like you said before, there's too many horror stories out there of late with the USPS. But we're stuck. We don't really have any, unless you want to pay the extra money. That's the truth. All right, so let's see. This is a non-painted cover.
Yeah, so this is Skottie Young. This was one of the first, at least 3 covers I got. There's another one in here. One of them I sold in that Comic Link auction to get the Alex Ross piece. But I have 2 of the covers that I bought from the early 2000s. One was eBay, and this was the first I ever bought directly from an artist. So Skottie would come to Heroes Con, and this probably would have been around 05 or 06, and just flipping through what he had. And I was a big Spider-Man fan, starting in the 90s. I was all in on those, Maximum Carnage and the Clone Saga. I look back now I was like, this is great. I was flipping through Skottie's portfolio and just kind of chatting with him, and saw this, and it was like, the price was, it was probably more than I had paid for any piece at that time. But still very within, a few $100 for the time. And bought this off of him. And I really treasure it now, because I've got a little girl who's going to be born in September, and so that's my first. So I'm really trying to be aware of art that I buy, because I want to put everything on the wall, but I'm like, I don't want to put anything that might scare kids, kind of thing. And so, a lot of the Venom stuff is just incredible, but at the same time, a kid walks by it, I'm not sure. So I love that I have a Venom cover that really just hints at Venom's presence and focuses more on, our protagonist there. So really love this piece. It's all pencil, and yeah, it's one of my very first covers, and definitely the first time I ever struck a deal with an artist.
Very cool. It's nicely framed too. You have an extra image of how you had it framed, and with the cover, the published cover above the artwork. That's a little different than a lot of people normally would put them side by side. But maybe that was the choice just because of the wall space that you had available. But it looks great that way.
Yeah, I'm actually moving away from that now that I'm buying so much. I'm like, framing them with the comic is eating up too much wall space. So now I've got a framer that I work with in Irving who's fantastic, and I bring him all my pieces, and I've brought him several now and said, hey, can you take this out and just frame the piece by itself? Because I'm losing too much real estate on the wall framing them with the comic.
You got to buy a bigger house.
Yeah, I do.
You got a little one on the way.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, here is another color artwork.
Yep. Yeah. So this was another artist that I kind of stumbled onto through social media. This is, and forgive me if I butcher his name. I believe it's pronounced Rodolfo Migliari, and he's an overseas painter. And he did a few Green Lantern, Blackest Knight. He's done mostly DC stuff, but he did a few covers, like exclusive variants for a store called Buy Me Toys, and or buymetoys.com. And this is one of the ones that he had for sale. And when he put it up, I was like, I can't believe, the price you're putting on this. Why are your Green Lantern covers so, priced higher than something that has Batman, Joker, Harley, Catwoman, Ivy? And he said, well, it's a store variant, so it's not canon, which I hadn't heard that term referred to before in comics. But he was like, I price these variants lower because they're not the canon cover. And I was like, well, sold then, if that's what you want for this kind of image with these kind of characters. This is from the Deceased series, or the Deceased. Yeah. And so I bought this one, had a good interaction. I think I reached out to him on Facebook, and he answered back, and we did the deal. And then at Christmas, he sent me a message and was just like, hey, Grant, hope you're doing well. Wasn't trying to sell anything. And I was like, that's really cool. That's the only time I've had a artist that I kind of struck up, a conversation with, reach out to me just randomly. And so, I'm actually waiting for my next, this year has been my year of kind of going back to the well. And, I never bought from an artist twice, but he had a cover coming out, might have come out this month, of Batman and Superman. And I reached out to him and struck a deal, and he was supposed to send it to me. I guess it was last month. He was supposed to send it to me, but things got delayed. I emailed him, and I was like, be sure you send me that tracking number, because UPS or USPS, and he was like, "Oh yeah, so sorry, I've been super busy. I'll do you a sketch to make up for it." I was like, "You don't have to do that, but I'm not going to turn down a free sketch." And so he was like, "What character do you want?" And I'll save it until it ends up on my CAF gallery. But he sent me a scan of it, and it's a painted piece, and I was like, "This is not a sketch. I'm not going to turn you down, but just love it when you have an experience with an artist and they really go above and beyond in every interaction you have with them." So again, don't want to shoot myself in the foot and have him inundated by people, but he is a great person to work with if you're ever looking for a cover or some really great art.
Very cool. I think well, there's a lot of fans of his work out there, so that's so you're not the only one. And
Awesome.
so you mentioned that you typically only buy one representative example from an artist. Was that so? That was by choice. You just always wanted to only have one, but you've broken that rule now.
By budget constraints,
Okay.
I feel like I have like a list of bucket artists. I don't really have grail pieces because I cannot afford what these pieces are going for, in the auctions and stuff. So I really wanted something, some representation of a number of artists that I'm still working through my list. But this year, I kind of loosened up on that, and it's like I should really focus more on getting as much good art from great artists who are still kind of on their way up, and not worry so much about getting these veterans. Like, just try and grab great art, regardless if it's a guy I've bought from before. And I think that's how you develop relationships. And so, yeah, I've now, Rodolfo was my first one, and you'll see a couple of pieces I had by the same guy later on. I got another couple, got my second piece from another artist this year. So yeah, it's, I think, you kind of set ideas and plans for what you want your collection to look like and what you want to focus on, and then taste change. So I'm opening myself back up to more stuff than I would have a couple years ago.
Very cool. And Nick, I was just going to answer Nick's question. I don't see I'm not watching it on YouTube, but I'm not seeing anything trimmed off on the comments when I'm pulling them on the screen. So I think Scott suggested it might be a font setting if you're not, you're on your computer. Yeah. Every once in a while I do something crazy and I hit like Control+ and it makes the fonts bigger or something. So maybe in some weird way it's expanding that and it's pushing them off the screen. You never know, but
yeah. I'm trusting you because I don't see any comments. So if anybody asks,
hey, Grant, I should have pointed it out. You see on the right hand side of the screen, you're probably on the private chat tab.
Oh yeah.
Click the comment. Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's my fault. Yeah, now you've seen that there's probably been 250 comments since we've been going here. I'm just pulling up select ones while we're talking.
Yeah, so. I wasn't ignoring anybody. I've never used this app before. So
no, that's my fault. Yeah. No, I usually let people know to make sure they're on that tab. I don't know why this platform doesn't default to the comments tab, because I never use the private chat while I'm in here. I mean, we're on screen together. So all right. Well, let's look at some more art. Now you can see the comments, so that's good.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so this was actually one from my sketchbook. Trying to figure out some pieces I had some stories around. So Buffy the Vampire Slayer played a huge role in my art collecting when I first started out, and I'll tell you why. So that first year, back in '99, when I started collecting sketches in the sketchbook, I don't even remember who I was waiting in line for, but I happened to be standing next to Dan Brereton's table. And I think he was promoting, I think the book was called Giant Killers. at the time. And so I was waiting in line for some artist, and asked Dan, since he didn't seem to be doing anything, I was like, will you put a sketch in my sketchbook? And he was like, yeah, he just drew like a very rough a character from the Giant Killers. And he was like, what you really should do to get artists interested in doing these sketchbooks, pick one character and get everybody to do that character, and get somebody to do something really great to start off with that the next artist feels like they have to top. And so I kind of thought about it, and I decided it didn't really start until the next year, but I was like, my mom and I love watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We loved that show when I was in high school, and it was one of the few shows that we both just thought was great. So I was like, all right, I'll start a Buffy sketchbook. And so I've got, a few commissions. My first commission that I got my only commission I ever got from Michael Turner before he passed away was a Buffy sketch. I got George Perez, got him to do a commission of Buffy. And these were ones that I actually hung on my wall on art paper. Randy was one of the few artists that actually worked on Buffy that did a sketch. And this I didn't even get at a con. When I would go up to Randy at the cons and ask for a sketch, he'd do a really quick face sketch and hair, and he'd do them on, usually he would do Witchblade because that was the book he was most known for. But Randy is actually from Greensboro, where I went to college, and he was doing a signing at a store with another artist that was taken away from us too soon, Mike Wieringo, I think is how you pronounce his last name. But Ringo and Randy were there, and really nobody in the store. So I went up and asked them for a couple Buffy sketches, and they did just much more detailed sketches than I ever got at the cons. And so, another piece of advice, look for store signings. It's not really the same today. Usually if there's a store signing, it looks like there's lines out the door based on what I'm seeing on social. But, you could get some great sketches from a store signing that people didn't really know was happening. And about Randy, so Randy's studio, which I think was called Tsunami Studios, was located in downtown Greensboro, down the road from where I went to college. And before I graduated, I found out that I needed an internship to fulfill my credits. So I talked to Randy about it, and I was like, you think there's any possibility that I could do an internship at your studio? And he was like, well, are you an artist? And I said, no, I'm an English major, want to potentially be a writer. And he said, well, we have a writer in the studio. So maybe he'd be interested. I went down to the studio, kind of met all the artists. I think there was an inker named, I think it was Rick Ketchum was working out of the studio. But a lot of cool guys. And so went down there, talked to him. I actually did an article on Randy because he graduated from UNC Greensboro, where I went. So I did an article, and he drew a cover for that. We did this arts magazine on campus, and Randy did a cover for it. I wish I'd have asked him for it or seen if I could buy it off of him. But so I was waiting to hear from this writer who didn't usually work out of the studio. And I get a call from Randy one day, and he was like, yeah, I talked to him, and he wasn't really interested. And he was, and so I told him, why don't you give him a call and just let him know? And the writer was like, nah, I'm not going to call that guy. And Randy was like, that's not cool. So Randy called me up and was like, hey man, just wanted to let you know it's not going to pan out. And I really appreciated that. I wasn't expecting much, but the fact that, he at least did the follow-up showed that he cared. So, big props for anybody who wants to collect Randy Green art. He's a nice guy. So
No, that's a good story. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's no, I'm kind of that way too. I can't leave anybody where I don't, even if I have to turn them down for something. I'm the kind of person that I always have to talk to them in person. So yeah, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't.
Bill's really good at responding to emails for anybody who has any questions about CAF. So I've emailed him with numerous questions before this. So
I do get behind. Lately I've been a little bit slow on some of them, but I do try to always email everybody. That's the thing. I do all the customer support on CAF too. So sometimes I try to answer them as quickly as I can, especially when I know they're an easy solution or something. So
yeah.
All right, let's here is a interesting piece.
Yeah. So this is Brian Stelfreeze. This was from a book called No Justice, No Peace, spelled Piece. And it was a charity book for I think it was the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. And this is one that I can't really pinpoint if I got the Skottie Young piece first or this one. I know I bought it off of eBay, but I was a huge Stelfreeze fan back in the day. When he was doing the Shadow of the Bat covers.
Oh yeah.
Brian was a regular at Heroes Con, and so I would always want him. I'd bring a big stack every year of the Shadow of the Bat comics, and he would always be talking with people a really long time, and I didn't want to go up to him and interrupt, and so it really annoyed me when I was a kid. But what annoyed me about Brian as a young comic book enthusiast, really, it was the thing I appreciated most about him later in life, because he takes so much time just chatting with fans and telling stories and doesn't rush people along. When I just wanted my comic book signed, hated that. But once I got into he will do these back then, this was late 90s, but you would go up and ask him for a sketch. He would do these incredibly detailed sketches and want no money for them. And so, yeah, I saw this one online, and I just love the imagery and the idea of, creators have to create. And no matter what kind of, barriers are put in front of them, creators are going to create. And I think that really is communicated through this. And I actually ran into Brian at the WonderCon when I went to that first one a couple years ago, and asked him about this piece because I wanted to know if there was any story behind it. And he said that, he was presented the opportunity to do this, but was really on the fence about it. And so they flew him down to Dallas, one of the first guys who was benefiting from the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. I think it was a writer who had run into some trouble. And so they flew Brian down to Dallas to meet with that artist. And after he had the conversation with him, he was like, yeah, this is a really worthy cause. I think I'll help out with this. And so, it added an extra layer, finding out that this had a Dallas connection. I think he just flew in and met with the guy at the airport, and then flew out and agreed to do the covers. So it added, just one more facet that I didn't find out until just very recently. Again, talking to Brian, who is, I think, one of the friendliest people when it comes to fans. And so if you haven't had a chance to meet Brian at a con, if he's there, I definitely recommend going up to him and talking to him.
Yep, I've talked with him many times, but I've never actually owned a piece by Brian. So I've got to correct that.
I had a few great ones that I got, back from those early shows that he did for free. And again, I let him go because I had the painted cover, so I let him go. But he did just incredibly detailed sketches for nothing, and that was why it took so long to get up there. And Brian told me, like, man, just come up to me and stick them in my face. Like, you don't have to wait in line. And but yeah, just the extra links he would go to interact with fans and give them something personal to take home. I really love that.
Well, I can't disagree with you on that. I remember those days as well. Watching him do the watercolor convention sketches that he would do. They were just fantastic. I mean, he's got an eye for color like Brereton has, as far as the same kind of sensibility with pop, really vibrant colors that pop. That when I was taking painting, I would never think of doing things that way, but some people just have it, and Brian certainly does.
Yeah, another current one that reminds me a lot of what Brian was doing and I have him later on in this group, but Clayton Crane, I think, does amazing stuff with color. And I think all of those guys had to have been influenced by Brian, because he was doing stuff with color years ago that nobody was thinking of. So
I agree.
So yeah, this one I picked up in a recent heritage auction. It was one of the ones for the Ed Asner. I think it's called the Ed Asner House.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so they help out families that are struggling with children and family members who have kind of really serious disabilities. And so, in addition to collecting primarily colored pieces, I really love to focus, not focus, but I love to pick up stuff by artists that don't typically work with colors. And so Ryan Sook did this piece, and I know him mostly for the Superman covers that he did. But when I saw this, I was like, wow, that's really incredible. I actually use the Facebook community, kind of put it out there to ask the question, like, does anybody else have colored pieces by him? Because I haven't seen much on CAF. And one guy responded that he got one a few years ago, that he had done color on a few things at the beginning of his career, but kind of gotten away from it. And this one is on it's slightly larger. I want to thank the CAF guys for teaching me the term twice up. I never heard that before, and I heard Will and Berkey use it, and so I typed in the messages. I was like, "What's twice up?" And you guys were kind enough to explain that to me, but not sure this qualifies as twice up. I think it's about probably 13 by 18, but it's on really thick art board and like a piece of wood. And I think it's just gorgeous, and was really happy to add this one to my collection.
No, that's a beauty. Absolutely. Yep.
And help out a good cause. I ended up spending one of the I don't like to say nice things, but there were a couple of charity auctions that popped up at the end of the year last year, which I was able to grab a couple pieces in, and so I think it makes you feel a little bit better about spending a little more on a piece if you know it's going to a great cause. So.
No, I agree. Well, that's why you see, I think a lot of the Hero Initiative auctions do really well on eBay, and and that's why when they, like the MegaCon auction, had the Hero Initiative tie in them as well, and you just tend to spend a little bit more freely, and I don't know, and like you said, you're helping a good cause at the same time and adding art to your collection. You can't go wrong.
Absolutely, Yeah, so this one I got, it's Julian Totino Tedesco, and I am just enamored by his work recently. It actually took me a while to pick up something from him. For those that don't know, probably most of the people who are watching this do, but he's represented by I think it's Chiaroscuro.
Chiaroscuro. Yep.
Chiaroscuro, and so they do a sale. I think it's typically around October, where they offer 30% off some of their art. And so I had emailed them a couple years ago about during October and never got a reply. And so I emailed a couple of times and didn't hear anything back. And so I really wanted something by him. And so the next year when October rolled around, I emailed again and I'm like, hey, really want something. And Nick, who works I guess as Julian's rep, emailed me back and looked at a couple of things that were already gone. And he said he still had this one, which I thought was just such a, really dynamic piece using the ink, which Julian typically doesn't use ink, or he does a few pieces in acrylic every once in a while, but mostly it's pencil and he finishes it out digitally, painting it. But just love this piece and was able to pick it up at a discount thanks to that sale. And I actually am in the middle of doing time payments on my second Julian piece because Nick and I have kept in touch ever since I got this piece. One funny part about it was, I emailed him, and I've emailed Julian directly and Nick, just so I make sure that nothing gets by me that I really want. And so I was asking for any story around how he decided on that composition, or anything having to do with the art. And he said, well, actually, you almost got a different piece of art because I got it all packed up and was ready to mail it. And, this is Julian I'm talking to at this point. And Julian said, I'm not quite sure that I signed it. Let me open it back up and see if I signed it. And he opened it back up, and it was a Rorschach cover that he just did like a month or two ago. And he, realized his mistake and switched it out for the cover that I had actually bought. But yeah, I tell people, I could have easily been, posting a Rorschach cover on my because yeah, you put in the wrong thing and just happened to open it back up. But yeah, Nick is great to work with. Julian is good with the time payment. It was actually the quickest turnaround I've ever had on a piece of art. I know Julian's overseas, but I think I sent the money through PayPal on like a Monday and got the art on Thursday. So, and Julian said that's very rare. So no other collectors don't expect the turnaround to be that good.
You were selling it really good there, right? Until that moment.
But great guys to work with. And again, when that October sale rolls around, get something before then, but that's a great time to look for a piece at a steep discount. So
yeah, Chiaroscuro maintains the CAF Gallery as well. So yeah. I think Ivan Costa is kind of the head person there, but he's got his hands on a lot of different things as well. So he's not usually the point of contact for their business.
Yeah, the CAF Gallery I feel like is a lot easier to navigate than the website. So most of the stuff I look at, I get through the CAF or end up buying is through the CAF Gallery for a lot of these dealers. So
yeah, no, They keep telling me they've got a new site coming at some point because their current site, or the one that they've had probably for the last 8 years, isn't really, it's not very good. It's not crawlable, so that's why I've never put them into our inventory, and that's what forces them to have to maintain the premium membership and upload everything onto CAF. I mean, it works well for them. They're certainly selling a lot of art through CAF, but yeah, I think that if they could ever get a site that I could crawl, it might make things easier. So he said sometime this year there will be a new website for them.
But yeah, Julian is one of those that I see a lot of similarities with like Adam Hughes and Alex Ross. It's the expressions that he's able to accomplish with faces, I think it's not photorealistic by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a very like comical and realistic. But again, that's one of those that if you see something you like, look at the solicitations and reach out to Nick, because his stuff is gone way before it makes the CAF Gallery at this point. So get on their newsletter, talk to his rep, because if you want something from Julian right now, his stuff is going fast.
There you go. So that's a good sales pitch.
I didn't get on here meaning to do that, but
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You're giving collectors a heads up on stuff. That's always good. I think that's what makes the hobby special. We're not greedy. You can't own every piece of art from a particular artist.
Yeah. So Berkey would be able to help me out with this one. I think it's Felipe Massafera. Massafera. Yeah. So this is from, I think the book was called Gold Key Alliance, which featured several of more old school characters like Magnus the Robot Hunter. I think it's the Robot Hunter or the Robot Fighter. But this was one that popped up on Comic Link a couple years ago, and I wasn't familiar with him before that until I saw this on Comic Link, and I was like, this is another guy that's got that almost photorealistic style that you see with Alex Ross's stuff, and was just blown away by it. And when I was actually in San Francisco visiting friends, and would never absolutely not recommend this, but the auction was going on while I was driving, and so I had the phone in one hand and was trying to navigate downtown San Francisco, where I didn't live and hadn't visited much, and making sure that I didn't lose out on this piece. And luckily I got it, and luckily nothing happened. But please, a piece of advice, be sure you schedule your vacations and things around and not conflicting with the auctions if there's something in there that you really want. So I was really happy that I was able to pick that up and safely. Well, not safely, without dire consequences.
Right, exactly. No, I certainly do not recommend bidding and driving at the same time. That's not a wise decision. You should have taken a cab or had somebody else drive that day.
Yeah, learn from my bad choices, if nothing else.
Yeah, I can see the story you have to tell the police officer after the fender bender. I was trying to get that last second bid in at Heritage.
The officer would have been like, "What was the artist's name?"
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Like then off to the breathalyzer test.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one that I just picked up recently, and kind of talking about how your tastes change and priorities change. A couple years ago, I was like, all right, I've gotten to a point in my life, I'm just going to get covers. But now, I'm kind of looking at it, and, there's a lot of really great art out there that isn't published, and a lot of younger guys, so you can get some really good deals as things are kind of going through the roof. So This is another name I might butcher. It's JC, I think Fable or Fable. He hasn't done much published work that I'm aware of. He's on a book now, but he's represented by Three Wishes, I think is the group. And so Three Wishes does eBay auctions every other week or so, and or it might be every week. But I actually bought a couple of things from this artist because I think his style is just so great. And this is not a published piece, but just Catwoman and Batman, and again, going back to how big of a role Batman played in getting me starting in collecting. And Batman Returns, I remember going to see that we were on a trip to Alaska for a week. And it was the first time I'd ever been on a big vacation, but it coincided with the week Batman Returns opened. So I made my parents, while we're touring Alaska, take me to the movie theater to see Batman Returns. And Catwoman's kind of that style from the movie. So yeah, really just love this piece, and that artist I think is really gonna go places in the next couple years.
Yep, I'm good friends with Kirk Dilbeck from Three Wishes, and I've seen a lot of Bubbles art. Yeah, because he's got a CAF Gallery as well. Kirk actually doesn't have a website for Three Wishes. He runs everything through CAF.
Yeah, and again, not to plug people too much, but I've done a couple of auctions with him, and the art has arrived really quick, really well packaged. So I don't think he's really responsive to emails because I've asked about stuff in his CAF Gallery. So he's definitely one that I don't think you'd be disappointed doing business with.
No, not at all. And he's got a very great art collection. So,
yeah,
as well, he's always picking up, I think his sweet spot is probably the 70s, but he's got a phenomenal collection. I love it every time he makes an update.
Yeah. Yeah, so this one isn't the greatest scan in the world. I took a picture of it after it was framed, and yeah, it's just a beautiful piece by Chris Stevens. It's the cover to FF number 4. So I met Chris at a con in Dallas a couple years ago, and I was kind of flipping through some of the art he had, and I was on the phone with my wife, like, hey, I think he'll work with me on the price of some of these, and that's one thing I'm always doing it. If you ever see me at a con and I'm on my phone, it's probably because I'm texting pictures to my wife to be like, is this okay? But yeah, one of the cool things about the art versus the published cover is the art has a red border at the bottom, and it pretty much cuts out Iron Man. Like, you can hardly see Iron Man down there, kind of laid waste by Doom on the actual published cover. But yeah, I mean, I'm just baffled why you don't see more published covers by Chris. I think during this pandemic, I've seen a lot of his commissions going up online, and I think he's kind of getting his props because he's doing just incredible commissions. I saw one for Dune not too long ago, and he did a Silver Surfer and Galactus commission. That was like 2 pages, but I think he's kind of getting recognized at this point. But yeah, it came down to this piece, and there's a bullseye cover that is actually for sale now on Ramita Man. That those were the 2 pieces that were kind of my finalists, and I again always trying to haggle. I was like, which one can you come down a little on? And he was like, well, the bullseye just came out. I don't really want to come down on that. I'll come down on this one a little bit. And so that's how I ended up with this one. But just love the image of Dr. Doom, standing over the not traditional Fantastic Four, but I think you got Invisible Woman and Iron Man in there. So, and just his use of color in this, it's black and white, but it's done with marker and Copics, I think. And it really is a stunning one.
His work is definitely beautiful. He's repped by Felix now, so you can only expect good things out of that. And like Felix and his wall power commissions and all that kind of thing. So Chris is definitely in good hands. But he was already, he made a name for himself 4 or 5 years ago, really, with the quality of the commissions he was doing and turning out. And I remember Tim Townsend was a big proponent of Chris's work when his work started getting on the scene. So he definitely is one of the I don't know, it's got a style that I really appreciate.
Yeah, and his stuff wasn't breaking the bank. I don't know what it's like now, but I mean, it seems like for artists of his caliber, even the stuff that's on Felix right now, it's not through the roof. So, I think he's one to pick up while you have the chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a few. I was just checking Felix's site just to see how much is actually available. I think you maybe have just like 12 pieces available for purchase on Felix's site. So, yeah. It's definitely out there. Felix is one person I've talked to about adding in those filters, everybody, as far as being able to only look for art that's available. And we're working on it.
That's a great idea.
Definitely. It's a matter. Felix is very used to seeing the site in a certain way. And so I'm trying to work with them.
Did you add that feature to Albert's website?
Yeah. Yeah. It's on Albert's site. Yep.
I love that. I mean, it changes you would look through so much of Albert's stuff and it's like gone. And it's like now being able to just see the stuff that's there. If I can never afford a piece off Albert's site, then.
Well, Anthony is going to launch. I mean, we've been working on his redesign and it's got all those same filters in there, even a little bit different because he has the ability to add a genre to his artwork. So his filter is going to be really nice because you'll be able to add in the same kind of stuff, price ranges sorted by high to low, or be able to exclude, just look at everything 500 or less, or $500 to $1,500. So I think it's going to make, on Anthony's site, his site is just so it's terrible. It's like one of the oldest sites out there that I had worked on. And this is such a huge upgrade. And I can't see how you're going to be surprised, Anthony. I bet you sell probably 10 or 15% more artwork through your site now that people will be able to find things. At least with Anthony, he has a real checkout on his site. So anything on his site is actually for sale. But you try to find it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So I can tell everybody that we are actually going to launch Anthony's site on Sunday, May 23rd, because he starts off, he's always done the Sunday panel at noon. So he is doing a Riley Brown art drop during that panel for that Fortnite Batman related work that he's been doing. And then at the same time, we're going to launch his site at noon on Sunday as well, just to kind of roll in at the, and he's opening that big kind of whatever he's got, the gallery thing that he's been working on with the little coffee house in it at his warehouse. So all that's going to go on. Should be interesting.
Cool.
Yep. All right. So we got 4 more artworks to look at, and they are, let's see, and this is a black and white image. So let's take a look at that.
Yeah. So I actually got this off of Berkey. It's from a magazine that I'm blanking on right at the moment. Back Page, I think is what it's called, or back issue.
Yep.
Back issue. So just kind of talking about how tastes change, and this was actually the first trade I ever did. There was a while there after I got that Alex Ross piece, and after I decided I was just going to buy covers, that I was just trying to get up as much stuff as I could. So like I went to Berkey's Roadshow when it came to Dallas, and I traded him.
You mean Anthony?
Anthony. Who did I say?
You said Berkey. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry. Anthony. So when Anthony came to town, I brought a bunch of art that I had gotten from my early collecting days, and did kind of a cash and trade deal for a couple covers for him. from him. I bought up several things from Comic Link that went kind of on the lower end, and got some things from some artists at a couple of cons that I really wanted something by those artists, but I wasn't just buying kind of what I could afford, and I got a lot of stuff in a short amount of time that I just wasn't passionate about. And I've heard that same story repeated on this show by some other collectors, figuring out when to do quality over quantity. And so I think Berkey had this page on his website for a while, and it really checked a lot of boxes as far as my, I realized that in 2019, I was buying art, but it was the 30th anniversary of the Batman movie, and I had bought pretty much no Batman pieces. So 2020 was a big year for me I said, I need to have Batman more represented in my art. And another bucket list of mine was I need to have a Superman drawn by Dan Jurgens, because his run on Superman when I was a kid, the death, the funeral, the reign of Superman. Dan was just one of those artists that he's my Superman artist. I know people have from their childhood, they have their Byrne and their Perez, but for me and the time I grew up in collecting, Dan Jurgens is my Superman artist. And so I actually wanted to be sure. So I messaged Dan on Facebook, friended him and messaged him. And I was like, hey, Dan, I'm looking at this cover. I want to make sure like this is, these are inks over your actual pencils. And I was like, do you remember if you sent blue lines to the inker? And he was like, no, this is mine. So having Dan respond to me so quickly about this, I was like, I got to have this. And so, yeah, I struck a deal with Berkey. I was like, Berkey, I'll give you 3 covers that I have that, I'm not attached to for this one. And Berkey was cool with it. He was like, yeah, just send me a description. And I think he was kind of at a point where he's trying to get inventory up. And so, I think he's probably in the same predicament now, thanks to those Wednesday shows, because it seems like stuff is just flying off the websites now that Dueling Dealers has started. But no, it checked so many boxes for me. I didn't care that it wasn't painted. It was the first non-painted piece that I gotten since the Skottie Young. So it was probably a 15-year gap between my inked and pencil pieces, but that Jurgens cover just checked so many boxes. I had to have that one.
That's a beauty. And you said you were saying Berkey again. You meant Anthony, right? You said you picked it up in Dallas, so I'm assuming it's Anthony, but maybe.
Yeah, so I traded a bunch of pieces.
Oh, got it.
Anthony to buy covers when I was just trying to buy up covers. And then I had a bunch of covers on hand that I wasn't passionate about. So at that point, I contacted Berkey, and I was like, hey, Berkey, you got this cover. I got a bunch of covers I don't care about. Can we work something out? So, yeah. That's one thing.
He's very amazing at being able to do that, by the way. He's
always... him and Anthony. I mean, they were both really, really great. I had a ton of stuff, and Anthony was like, what do you think it's worth? And he was willing to do a cash and trade with me. So Anthony and Berkey introduced me into the trading world, which I want to do more of. If there was one request I would give you as a CAF fan, is a easier way to figure out what collectors are kind of in more of the trading, like want to do that. I just kind of have to go through and kind of look at their descriptions and go through want lists to see if anybody mentions trading specifically. I would love to figure out an easier way to connect with other traders on CAF.
If I had a Post-it note, I'd write it down right now. No, it's not a bad idea. Where for a premium member who can put their stuff in the classifieds, and if you could also flag it as something you might be willing to accept trade for versus you're only looking for cash. I mean that would be an important signifier for some collectors. So again, you never know when and these are simple things that we can probably implement as part of the CAF classifieds. When for something simple like that. So.
Yeah,
I'll talk with Maureen.
Saying it just the other night on a show that, like, when you sell something, you're always worried about, am I getting, enough for this? Would I do better to go on an auction or something? But I feel like when you trade, you don't have those reservations. You want something that really speaks to you at that moment, and so giving up something to another collector and it speaks to them, I feel better about trading than I do selling.
Sure. And Mikhail, you are right. We equals Maureen, and so I'm not bringing up anything to her until after Comic Art Live is over. She's worked all day on some of the changes that I had for her today. So I'm going to give her a few days off, and then I'll talk to her about something like that. But that would be a very good feature, I think, because like you said, there are people who are more interested in trading, and I know I saw it in the comment. I can't find it right now. Oh, well, there it is. When Dino said, always great to trade, mass stuff for something that you really love. And and the dealers typically are usually happy to do that when they've had something on their site for a while. They're definitely going to be more open to making a deal or working out a trade, because Berkey's a perfect example. He just wants to keep turning things over. So he's happy to get in 3 pieces of lower value for that one, because to him he'll probably do better with the 3 pieces separately than keeping that one piece. So you never know. You got to, unless you ask.
Yeah, and put it out there, because just because something isn't didn't mark a milestone in my collecting, a cover I have might have been the first comic somebody ever bought, and so you never know until you put it out there and talk to other collectors, kind of thing. Very true.
All right, so we got 3 more here. 2 color pieces are up next.
Yeah, so I mentioned Clayton Crane. I kind of discovered him a couple years ago, and again, his use of color just blows me away. Really reminds me of that kind of early Stelfreeze work, and so this is one that his stuff has become exceedingly rare and exceedingly expensive. But a couple years ago, he had quite a few covers on his website, and this one was on the low end of kind of what he had on there. It's Punisher 222, and it's when Frank Castle was using the War Machine armor. But so I saw this one sitting on his website for a while. Kept looking, to see if it moved. It didn't. And so he came to the Dallas Fan Expo a couple years ago. And, I went, I had only bought a 1-day ticket. And so I went up to him and I was like, hey, I was looking at this piece of art you have on there. I can't really do what you have it priced for. Can you come down on it a little bit? And so he was like, yeah, if you do all cash this weekend, I can do that. And so we shook hands. The ATMs at the Comic-Con only give you like a few $100. So I was like, I'm going to have to leave and come back tomorrow with the full amount, because the ATMs here won't give me enough money. And so I left, and I didn't want to pay for another day at the con. I'm kind of cheap. I didn't want to pay $60 just to go in and hand somebody money, because he didn't have it with him. He was going to have to mail it to me. So I tried feverishly to email him, get him on Facebook. I guess he wasn't checking those things. So I ended up buying a Sunday ticket to the Dallas Fan Expo and took him the cash and handed it over. And yeah, he sent me this in the mail a couple months later. And I'm just, blown away now at what his stuff is going for, because there's no covers at what I paid for this. And, there's like sketch covers that go for way more on his website and on eBay than I was able to get this for. So, yeah, I mean, it really seems like now if you have any interest in an artist, go ahead and pull the trigger if it's within reach, because this stuff is just going through the roof. And yeah, I love that one.
No, that's good. And yeah, Clayton's work has gone from being affordable to really being well, but priced appropriately in today's market. I know that anybody who got anything early from him is very happy.
Yeah, I mean, it's going for the same thing in the auctions, so it's not like he's overpricing it. I mean,
no, not at all.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, people are catching on to how incredible his stuff is.
Yes. And I just want to say to Mikhail and to Tony, I will let Maureen know that she earned the show a few super chats tonight. So I appreciate that. She'll be happy to know. She was actually also working at the mini golf today, so I could be on the show tonight. And I know that she was stuck there an hour late. So because she had some slow golfers out there. So I'm going to have to be extra nice when the show is over. So, yes. So one more color piece here before we're done for the evening. And then there's another artwork after this one.
Yeah. So again, going back to Felipe, help me out with the last name, Bill.
Massafera.
So yeah, again, just loved his stuff. Not until this year did I start buying things from artists that I already had. But, I saw an X-Men cover that he had posted on his Instagram. And so I messaged him and I was like, is this claimed yet? How much is it? Had no idea, because the other piece I got from him was from an auction. So I never talked to him. And he replied really quickly. He was like, yeah, this was actually a commission I did a few years ago. And so it's gone, probably for this kind of commission, I'd be looking, and I'm not going to speak to that, but way higher than I could do. And so I was like, well, do you have any other stuff kind of on hand that you'd be willing to let go of? And so he sent me a few pieces, and this was one of them. And I just love, I really wanted a DC or Marvel piece from him. So this was one of the ones he had. And I just, again, love the photorealistic aspect of it. The ring kind of front and center. And this was a cover from the Emerald Warriors series. And again, just a great first time I ever got to interact with him on a one-on-one level. And he was really responsive, really quick getting it mailed out. And most of what he kind of sent me that he still had on hand, I now see on Berkey's website. So if you reach out to Felipe on Instagram and ask what he's got on hand, it might not be much, because I think Mike snatched a lot of it up. So
yeah, I think that Jim D'Amico, who's Mike's friend, picks up a lot of it, and I know that then Mike ends up getting it. So because I've talked with Mike about Massafera's work, and he's always said that, nope, I don't have the connection. It's all Jim. Jim just brings it over, and he usually Jim does a lot of trading with Mike, so that's usually how Mike's been getting it.
Oh, very cool.
But now everybody knows they can go to Instagram and get.
Yeah, he
might as well, right?
Yeah, I would say when you message on Instagram, it's probably more like 40, 60, like how many artists actually respond. But I've had a lot of luck on Instagram. Terry Dodson's really responsive. I mean, people I haven't gotten a chance to buy from yet, but you know, there's a lot of guys. Julian responded on there. You know, really responsive artist on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's you know, that's the one platform I don't use, as everybody knows, is Instagram, and I probably should, but I just can't. I just don't get that site. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it.
I was of the same mind. I was like, I only have the bandwidth for so many freaking social media things. But Instagram was one that I relented, and so glad I did, because there's most of the people I follow now are comic artists and dealers.
That's true. That is true. I know Anthony Albert's even been using Instagram. So when Albert is using Instagram, you know that, you know, maybe I should actually get out of the Stone Age and use it as well. All right, so we got one last artwork, and it's not color, and it's not a cover.
No. Yeah, I did. Once I talked to you about doing the show, and you were like, you know, be sure you have stuff with stories. I was like, well, I should probably put some of my sketchbook in, since I've got more stories, since I actually got that from the artist in person. But so this is the very last sketch of the first year I did my sketchbook at Heroes Con. Bob Layton was there. I had run around all weekend, got just phenomenal sketches from, you know, a lot of different people, folks that, you know, are sadly no longer with us. Like I said, Ringo a little earlier. Dick Giordano did great free sketches. But Bob Layton, I went up to, I had actually been stalking John Romita Jr. John Romita Jr. was there, and I was like, would you do a sketch for my sketchbook? He was like, if I have some free time, maybe, but, you know, I don't really do that. And so I kind of waited until, you know, he was coming back from the bathroom or a meal for John Romita Jr. And he did a quick little eyeballs and the webs coming from the face. And then the next one I went up to was Bob Layton. And I just asked him for some, I don't even remember if I don't think I would have asked specifically for Captain America, because I wasn't a big, you know, Avengers fan as a kid, but I probably said, just do whatever you feel like. And he did this just amazing sketch, absolutely free, did it in pencil first, and then went over and inked it, probably in marker. But, you know, when I had this in hand, I was like, all right, that's it, I'm done. I think I got 27 sketches that first year. And it just always reminds me of that time when I kind of first got into collecting and was kind of feeling out how you do this, how do you strike up a conversation with an artist, how do you ask them about their work, ask them if they're willing to do something for you. And so, you know, just the level of detail in this, I closed up shop on this one that first year, and you know, it kind of put me on the path that I'm on now, with getting art from collectors and feeling a lot more comfortable now to go up to artists and realizing, you know, they're people. They're, you know, somebody was talking on one of the shows about etiquette and, you know, not just going up and looking at art. And yeah, I mean, most of the time, there's some artists that don't want to be bothered. I mean, some of them are like, you know, if they're completely fine with you just coming up and looking at their art. And, you know, if it's not for you, it's not for you. It's no skin off their back. But, you know, usually if an artist is like, hey, how are you doing? You know, that's somebody who wants to talk and wants to engage with you as a fan. So I think it's different for every collector and different for every artist. But yeah, really enjoyed, you know, getting to speak with you. When I started this, I was like, there's no way we would go back past an hour 15.
Well, that's just it. You know, once you start talking, you know, it just flows from there.
Exactly. Yeah.
When you have good engagement in the comments. Now that you know that I should have told you they were there. You could have seen them for an hour, but I do want to tell Mikhail that I just sent out your comment about stop using Snapchat as a Snapchat to my family. So, and that's what I don't like about Instagram. I'll just say it is because it's, you can sort of use it from desktop, but I am just not into using my phone for social media. And someone asked about how do I get the stuff on Instagram? Well, because Facebook owns Instagram, Facebook allows you to auto post over to Instagram. And so I just check that box. And so whenever I post to Facebook, it goes over to Instagram too. But Instagram, they only let certain image formats go over there. So like when I do a PR mailing out of MailChimp for any of the things that I do, I can't auto post to Instagram unless I make the image a square. You can't post a regular 11 by 17 dimension artwork into Instagram, and they can't automatically crop it for you. So it's like I just tend to so I have a disdain for Instagram just because I can't do everything on my phone. I'm just not that way. So one of these days.
Yeah, I don't post to it anymore. Maybe occasionally, but yeah, the main use I get out of it is following these artists and again, trying to be the first one. If there's something that really speaks to me, a lot of times it'll end up on their Instagram feed before anywhere else. And so, trying to get in touch with them as quick as possible when I see something come up. It's a big help, but yeah, I totally get it's just too much now with the Snapchat. I'm not on Snapchat. And,
well, it's just that, yeah, I just use that with my family. That's how we communicate some days. It's just through Snapchat. But I do actually have Instagram on my phone, and I used to use it. I use it once a year when I'm doing that book project for Infected by Art, and the submission period is coming in. I like to share the artist's work, but it is the cropping part, and I just can't. I'm not good with my thumbs to type, so it's just not a thing I enjoy doing. So
yeah, you also the cropping, you lose a lot when like there've been a couple of pieces that I tried to run by my wife, but they're separated into two images. So I have to drag in my computer and try and put them together. Be like, this is the piece. Can you?
Yes.
It presents numerous issues for collectors.
Exactly. Yes, and Thor has clumsy thumbs. Thank you, Mikhail. I'm going to remember that when I'm making some memes for you on Monday, for Monday's show. Just remember, there's a Thor all thumbs meme coming your way, Buster. All right, so yeah, like you said, Grant, this time flies when you're having a good time. So I totally enjoyed tonight's conversation. This really worked well. I mean, the number of artworks that we picked, and you really picked good pieces to talk about. That's this worked out great tonight.
Yeah, I feel terrible for judging the people who are like, how could you possibly talk about your art for 3 hours? And it's like, sure enough.
It's true. It's true. I mean, and again, it's so much fun to do these. And if we were at a con, we'd be sitting around, having dinner and drinks and talking for 2 hours. I mean, 2 hours just fits really well. And, I know it's not everybody can sit there, but I can tell you, I get emails a lot from people that, they listen to the show in the morning. It's like on their morning commute, they'll just kind of sync their phone up with the radio, and they're driving into work. They listen to it then. They listen to it on the way home. So they don't even watch. They just want to hear the conversation. So I'm happy anyway. People catch the show.
And I love the fact that so many people who pop up in the chat are people you've seen a week or two ago on the show. I mean, that is proof positive that the people who you have on are actually fans of the show and are fans of CAF. So again, on behalf of myself mostly, but everybody else, I really want to thank you for what you've contributed to the hobby.
Well, it's my pleasure. Trust me, it's a labor of love. I feel fortunate, and Nick Verrucci would say the same thing. It's really cool when you grow up wanting to be involved in comics, and you just love comics, and then you end up getting to do something that's in what you had a passion for all this time. And so, yeah, I mean, every day I wake up, I'm grateful for the opportunity to do what I do and to hang out with everyone here. And, like I said, I can't wait for us to be able to get together sometime in the future. I can't wait for that first show. so we can actually go out and have an art gathering and really enjoy the hobby in person. So as much as I enjoy these, I'm looking forward to that.
If anybody ever wants, I know we've got the West Coast and the East Coast represented with the comic art shows. If anyone ever wants to represent the middle and bring one to Texas, I would not object.
There you go. I do think.
Comic art show exclusively.
Yes. I do think that there's a few. Well, I mean that haven't happened this in the last 12 or 14 months, but I think there are a few art get-togethers either in the Dallas area or maybe it's Austin. I can't remember. So
Jill and Casey have a group here in Dallas that they organize, and they do a bunch of get-togethers and happy hours. I've never had the guts to go. Like I'll comment. I'm part of the like North Texas art collectors group. That Casey and Jill are kind of like the main spokesmodels for. But yeah, I've never had the guts to actually go to one of their happy hours. So maybe once as things get back to normal, I'll actually work up the courage to go to one of those.
Well, I highly encourage everyone to do that once this whole situation has finally passed us by. So again, Grant, thank you for taking the time this evening, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Obviously, I'll do my CAF update tomorrow, so anybody that wants to hang out and just chat with me directly, we've got that. We've got the collector's conversation on Sunday evening with Dino, Mikhail, and Jill and George. And then we've got Mikhail versus Jason in an amateur dueling dealer episode on Monday evening. So lots of stuff going on. And I'm now I've got an edge ready for Mikhail. He's going to get the worst of it. I thought Jason would, just because Jason and I, at any rate, Mikhail's going to get the worst of the memes on Monday night. So I hope everybody tunes in to check those out. And again, thanks again, Grant. I really appreciate it. And everybody, good night. And I will see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Bill.